Welcome back to our series of trying things we've never tried before. Today we're trying something that I've been quite interested in trying, and thank you to my brother-in-law for lending me these. We're trying contrast paints, Citadel contrast paints. So we're going to see how these work. We've got a good selection, so let's get into it. So today we're going to be trying out the contrast paints. Let's say my brother-in-law's lent me these. I have never used contrast paints before. They look interesting. I've seen good results and I've seen bad results, so it'll be interesting to see what we can get out of these. Now we've got a good selection here, so we've got a black, we've got two greens here, we've got yellow, an orange, a red, some different browns, earth tones, flesh colour, and two lots of blacks, a dark brown actually. So what we're going to do to test these is we've got the good old orc boy, so we're going to be painting up him. But one thing I really wanted to try was Games Workshop say that you need their primer that's a contrast undercoat. So I have primed him with this, but I have also done quite a heavy zenithal highlight on this guy with just surface primer and my good old favourite Liquitex white acrylic ink. So we're going to do a little side-by-side comparison to see if you do need to use their undercoat or if you can get away with just using the stuff you've got on your own without having to spend anything else. So let's get down to it and start the first colour. Okay, so the first colour I think we're going to do is probably the skin. I think that might be a good start. I normally with my orc boys start on their skin first, so let's do it with this as well. So we've got two greens here. We've got orc flesh, which sounds like it'll be perfect, and warp lightning, which is obviously going to be a lighter colour one. This one does seem really dark, but we'll go with this. So let's get in a little paint stand. With these, I'm still working on it. As you can see, there's some notes on it. We're going to be selling these. They're going to be pretty cheap, just like $2.99, and it's going to be free shipping to the UK and just a standard charge for going overseas. But I know for a fact my brother-in-law spilt one of these, and with them being £4 each, I kind of want to just pop it in a paint holder, because then you can knock it about and not have to worry about it tipping. So we'll give this a wee shake up. It's very liquidy. It's kind of like a wash. In fact, I've got a wash here. Yeah, it's very similar to the wash. So I'm kind of expecting it to be quite like a wash. So let's pop it in and get a brush. And yeah, does seem very much like a wash. Oh wow, that colour is quite bright actually. This actually reminds me of using inks. So I have heard people saying that the contrast paints are very much like inks, and that's why they say they're a bit of a waste of money, because you can get inks really cheap, and if they do the same job, then you may as well go for the cheaper option. But straight away you can see that it is putting definition. It is a lot darker in the recesses and very light in the top, so I'm quite impressed so far with this, because if you're doing a lot of orcs, I use the airbrush and it speeds up. If you're doing it by hand and you're having to do all the little highlights, and then do like a wash and then pick out some highlights again, then it's going to be a very tedious job to do. But with the contrast paints, it seems like it's going to be super easy. No, it's looking really good, because compared to, let's see, one that's not been washed up too much, because that's my normal orc arm and that's that orc arm, and there's not a huge amount of difference. So this is looking pretty promising for it. Just put a wee bit more on that arm. Yeah, this is looking good. Right, let's take this guy off. So this one is the one that I have done the zenithal highlight on with just normal surface primer and the inks. So let's see what we get from this. If we notice much difference in it. Straight away, there's not really anything jumping out. This one is looking darker, but this does have darker recesses from doing zenithal highlight, where this one doesn't. To be honest, I don't really have a favourite yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish painting the skin up on both these, and then we can come back and have a closer look and see what they look like. Okay, so I have done the skin on both of them, and this is the one with Games Workshop primer, and you can see it's still wet, so it's still a bit shiny, but it's coming out well actually. This would be fantastic for new painters or young painters even. Like, it just makes it so much easier, because in that one coat, the only thing I'd say is missing is some highlight, which is easy to chuck back in. So yeah, that'll probably just need to highlight in some of the muscles just to make it stand out a bit. And the one that I zenithalled, it is darker. So the effect on it isn't as good. So I think there is actually some advantage to using Games Workshop stuff, because maybe a smoother surface. Yeah, kind of feels a bit smoother. So obviously for it to run into the recesses and that. But what we'll do is we'll try a different colour and see how that comes out. Right, so we've done the green. So I think the next thing to do is going to be the shirt. So with the shirt, I'm kind of looking at red, orange, yellow. So I think this guy I'm going to do a red, and this guy, in fact I'm going to do a yellow, because yellow is quite a hard colour to paint on models. It needs quite a few layers, sometimes base coating it with an orange or a brown just to bring out that yellow. So let's see if this is going to be an easy yellow. Kind of looks like a brownish yellow, but we did notice with the orc flesh that it was really dark, but when it came out it was a lot lighter. So I think you can't really go by the bottle. So we'll start with this guy. This is one that I primed with my surface primer and white ink. And let's see what this one's like. Get my brush. And here we go. It was a very deep blood red, which is quite a cool colour. So it'll be interesting to see how this one works. Oops. Got on his arm and wipes off super easy. So there you go. If you get on another part of your model, don't worry too much. In fact, I've got too much in that brush. Don't worry, because it does wipe off. It has kind of stained it. Obviously, if it was a lighter colour, it would be very obvious. Yep. This is just pulling into all the little crevices. Went too heavy here. Dries very quick. So I did go a bit too heavy in there. So what I'll do is, just like a wash, absorb it up and move it over. In fact, let's dry my brush. See how well this absorbs. Yeah, it absorbs fine. So yeah, when using this, just think of it as a wash, that you can manipulate it, you can push it into all the little crevices. Now, one thing I'm noticing is this middle bit here. It doesn't really look like anything's in there that's slipped off. So I think actually this undercoat is more porous, so it grabs the colour, so it stains the surface really easy, but it allows it all to go into the recesses, because this one here is kind of running off into it, but it has worked a bit. So in fact, we wanted a different colour, we wanted yellow, didn't we? So let's just wash the brush and see what this one's like. Slot that in so it doesn't spill. Oh, get this guy and stick him in. So let's see, is this going to be the magical yellow? Yeah, it's kind of a dirty yellow, which is absolutely fine for the orcs because they're always really grimy. So this yellow works for them. But still, I think this will need maybe a second coat on it, because you can see it's very faint and you can see the undercoat through it. So what I'm kind of gathering is, like, the red was a dark colour and it goes on really well, whereas the yellow, since it's a light colour, it's going to be more transparent. But we'll see what it's like when it's dried. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish doing the tops and the two models, and we'll get back for a wee close-up. Okay, so I have finished off doing them. So that is the red shirt. So it's a very deep red. And one thing to be careful of is I did put too much on the shoulder and it ran all the way down. So when I turned this side round, this side was pretty much painted for it. So yeah, you need to be careful how much you're putting on your brush, but it is a nice red. There's not a lot of contrast, but like I say, it's looking like you kind of need the Games Workshop stuff. So this is the yellow, so it's kind of a dirty yellow, but you can see the recesses are darker, so it is working. And it's quite good for a yellow, actually. When there's a wash on top of it, it'll look fantastic. So let's get on to the next colour. So we have used these colors. Oh, the orange is actually that color there. So that is that orange. So it's kind of a reddy orange. It'd be good for bases, like sort of Martian bases. And this green here, the lightning one, is that green there. So it seemed a bit more transparent than the other one. Now I think we'll go for leather now. So there is one that is snakebite leather, so we'll use that on the leather straps, and we'll be able to see a proper side-by-side comparison. Oh, this is very dark indeed. So we'll start with the one that actually uses the proper contrast undercoat, and oh, it's not that dark, so I don't think this is going to go well with the yellow next to it. What I'll do is I'll do a top strap, and then stuff can be messy, but actually you can erase it quite easy. The key is not to have too much on your brush. It's kind of just pulling, it's not. No, that's not liking this. Yeah, I'm going to have to use a darker one because there's not much difference between it. I will change to the red one and we will see what this is like. Yeah, it's working better. It's working very nice on that. So this leather is working super well on this model, but for some reason this model, it wasn't liking it. It is working, but I think it needs to be a darker leather for that model. Let's quickly try a darker one. Let's see, we have wildwood and a skeleton horde, flesh in the dunes. Let's go for this one. Oh, give it a shake. Okay, this looks even darker. It looks like black. So let's see how this one works. Get rid of the excess. Yeah, this is a darker brown, so this should be nicer. Yeah, you can see it better. So yeah, stands out better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish all the straps and we'll come back and have a closer look. Okay, so I've finished in the leather and I'm really not enjoying contrast paints. Literally, if it touches just off the edge, it bleeds out. So, and if you're not too careful, then you're going to end up with it all over your model. So this is obviously the non-contrast primer. I felt I had more control, especially with doing the straps, that it didn't fly everywhere on him. Probably the best example is strap on his leg. is pretty much on it, whereas in fact this strap's not too bad. But yeah, I just feel I don't have as much control with the contrast undercoat as I do with my own priming. So yeah, well, let's try something else. So we've tried these two browns, and what have we got left? We've got some other browns, some flesh tone. Let's see what the flesh tone looks like. It's a sort of light red. What have we still to do? We've still got the boots, the trousers, the weapons. Let's do the trousers. Oh, do we do black trousers? You know what? Let's just try it. So we're using the black Templar. Now, this will be interesting to see how this works, because obviously when you paint something black to get contrast, you need to add some grey highlights, some white, things like that. But if we can do this in a oneer, then this will be pretty good stuff. So let's see what happens. Ooh, it's very dark. Okay. Seems like it is starting to work with this one. That yes, there is contrast. So obviously this would save a lot of time for people that are painting the army with black armor and things. Am I a fan of it? Not really, no. It is clinging to bits. I kind of want this bit more black. But every time I put it in, it just goes, pulls out, so I think it can be a bit frustrating. You want to put colour down in a certain place and it goes no. So let's try it with the non-Citadel undercoat and see what it does. It's not flowing that well, which is good, so it's not running away from me. It still seems to be doing contrast. So it's getting into those recesses. But it is not very black. So I think it'll need a few coats. But straight away, this is nicer to work with on non-contrast undercoat. Whereas non-contrast undercoat is just running away. It's not staying where I want it to, where this is, you can manipulate it more. So it's quite interesting that. So basically, it seems like some colours, like the black, you don't want to use the contrast undercoat because it'll run away from you. But then some colours, like the green for the skin, you want to use the contrast undercoat. So that kind of comes across as being a bit of a pain, having to remember what colours work well with different priming. And it's not like you're going to prime your model different parts, like masking it off and spraying it with normal primer and then spraying this part with the undercoat. So I'm not a huge fan of this, but I'm going to finish painting up the trousers and we'll get back. Okay, so I have finished painting them up with the Black Templar. They're pretty much similar, but this one needed 2 coats, and this one just needed 1. So, what have we got left? We have still got the weapons to do, and the boots. Let's do the dunes for the boots, and see what this is like. So, brown leather boots. It's kind of like Agrax Earthshade, the wash. Very transparent. In fact, let's use that. It's on the fur in his hat. Fur is a real pain for painting, so I think this might be where contrast paint will shine, is doing the fur. Because if you're doing like a big bear or something, trying to get the fur is very time consuming. You need to do some dry brushing, picking out details. And if you're not a fan of doing all that, then maybe, yeah, I could see this working with fur. Obviously probably a better colour, but it gives you the idea that that's fur in the hat. So yeah, definitely would buy a contrast colour for doing fur. So that's a bonus to them. I don't like that for the boots, so let's do, what's the flesh colour like? Let's give it a go and see. Oops. Inside my brush. Yeah, it's just a reddish flesh. So we're not going to use that for the boots, because if we just have the boots, yeah, I think we've. Let's use the grey for the weapons, because the boots I'm going to just use the dark brown again. So the grey, seemingly this is good for weapons. Let's see what results we get. Now personally I wouldn't use them on weapons because I like my metallics metallic. Non-metallic metallics are great if they're done correctly, but if they're not, it's not a huge fan of it. So I always like to use my Army Painter metallics. But yeah, definitely going to go over it again with my metallic paints, but for the purpose of this video we are using contrast paints to paint up a model and see what results we can get. So I'm going to, in fact, so that goes on very easy and it goes into recesses nicely. Now let's try the non-contrast undercoat. Again, I feel I've got more control of it. It's not running away from me. I can manipulate it a bit more. So I think one thing to bear in mind is to be careful what you're painting. If you are painting something like orcs or Space Marines wouldn't be too bad because generally they've got the helmets on. But anything that's got lots of different ones, you don't want it running away from you, so I wouldn't use their undercoat. But anything that is just all one colour, like bears or things like that, then yeah, just go for their undercoat because it seems to flow better, and it'll be super quick for you. So yeah, I feel I'll have more control and then less control, but I'll finish painting these up and I'll get back to you. So, done. So this was the non-contrast undercoat primed one, so this one I did the zenithal highlight on. It's quick, it's super easy to do. I'd say that's tabletop standard. I felt I had more control with this model compared to this one that actually had their undercoat. I felt it just ran away, it pulled into the area, so it did what it was supposed to do, but I think it did it too well. The fur, I like the fur on it. It was super easy. One coat, done. You've got fur, so I would use it for doing animals. But the thing that I can't get out of my head is we have used £48 worth of paints. This guy here, £20 of paints. Which do you prefer? So yeah, £20, £48. And I'll show you what paints I used for this guy. Yeah, this guy here that I painted up, I used oil colours. They are the only paints I used except for the gunmetal and for the copper, true copper. So that altogether cost me around £20, and that's what I got out of it. Whereas these two guys, we used £48 worth. To be honest, I think I can't even say I enjoyed using them, because I felt like I was painting for the first time. Like, you want to get an amazing looking model and you start painting and it's just not working. This feels like this is what I painted, my very first ever model, and this was the model I was trying to achieve. But this is my painting all the time. This is what I do. This is not what I do. In fact, I might not even repaint it. I might just leave it. And these two guys can go at the front and they can die first, so they can get off the table and I can keep my good guys. So it was interesting using them for fur, definitely. Yeah, I would use it for fur. Everything else, no. I will stay away from it. They did remind me of inks. I've used inks quite a few times, so I'd probably try the Vallejo ink range. I think that's something I might get to try for the first time, and it'll be interesting to see if they work similar to these but better, because these just ran away. They're very messy. I think they are designed for new people to the hobby, people that don't have a lot of time to paint, because these two guys took hardly any time. Fired them out, where obviously this guy does take time. I'm being a bit more careful with them. I could have been a bit more neater with these, I guess, but I just was not enjoying it. So I'll be staying away from these, but I will recommend them for beginner painters, because the flesh is good. The contrast and a lot of things like the leather, yep, nice and easy. So yeah, that was contrast paint.